Well, needless to say, a lot has happened in various agencies and ministries, private and public, especially as a result of the NSAS protests. And one of them, critical to the economy, is the NPA, the entry point of significant import and export activities, in Nigeria, of course, as you have seen in the opening slide. The Managing Director, Nigerian Ports Authority, joins us this morning. Hadiza Usman, thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I'm wondering how you took on board that news of your property, your business being vandalized and touched.
The headquarters building of Nigerian Ports in Marina was attacked on Wednesday during the period of the NSAS attack. What we had witnessed was that on Tuesday, the Tinkan Island port was attacked. This is something that did not have a lot of widespread media coverage. So we had hoodlums trying to gain entry into Tinkan Island. That was on the Tuesday before the curfew. So the Commissioner of Police for the Western Command of the Ports deployed the mobile police, and it was quite a very, I'll say, challenging attack on the Tinkan Island port. We had one of the policemen was fatally injured. He passed on after a week of being hospitalized following the attack on Tinkan. So to our minds, we were more concerned about the critical infrastructure, the port location. So we deployed the necessary security support to Tinkan Island and Apapa ports. We got Nigerian Navy to provide backup on that Tuesday night to ensure that Tinkan Island was protected. We had two incidences of attack on Tuesday to Tinkan Island. The hoodlums were repelled. They went back. They mobilized. They now returned again to Tinkan. So we were quite aware of the, I'll say, interest of the hoodlums to get into the port location. So to our minds, our corporate headquarters did not seem as I'll say, a vulnerable place, a place where we need to sort of beef up security beyond what we usually have. We were more keen on preserving the port locations because that is where you have investment. That is the, indeed, gateway to the Nigerian economy. Ours, the Marina, is corporate headquarters. Yeah.
But looking at the destruction, that on the screen right now, it is definitely something. And of course, you said that the insurance companies are already looking into the books.
Yes.
Any valuation yet of how much the rebuilding is likely to?
No valuation yet. We have engaged the company to do the integrity test to determine what it is that arise from the burning of that part of our premise. So once the integrity report is ready, the insurance companies will now take over. So you can see there's the building part of insurance, there's furniture insurance, computers, equipment that we have in the place. There are also vehicles that were burned. 27 vehicles were burned within our office premise and our car park. We also have 3 numbers that were looted, they were taken away. So it's quite a significant impact on the, I'll say, the building and our logistics in terms of movement with our vehicles.
Any idea how much? Lagos State government hasn't done valuation. Let's put it to 1 trillion.
We cannot say. We don't have a valuation of exactly how much it is.
But any idea?
No idea. So you can extrapolate. If you say 27 vehicles were burned, out of them you have 10 of them are Camrys, 7 of them are Hilux vans, 6 of them are Jeeps. So in that way, you can have an idea of what it is. But in terms of details as to what it is that we would get from the insurance companies, we're not clear. But once we have those numbers, we'll make them public. We are a public entity, so everything that we do is meant for the citizens to know. So once we have the numbers on exactly what it is for car insurance, for the office building insurance, and all the other aspects, we'll make them public. But the important thing is critical aspects of our operations within the headquarters building were not affected. Our ICT deployment, which is a platform for our payments, was not attacked in any way. We had the concern about power to the headquarters building was cut off because of the fire. So we had a downtime of 2 days before our payment platforms resumed back to operation. So we have sustained our operational activities, and we're in the building. It's a wing that got burnt. So we continue.
So things were destroyed,
yes.
burnt. by people.
Yes.
And I recall the Minister of Transportation, when he visited, he was saying that, well, if people are not arrested for things like this, they will do them again.
Yes.
Said that if these hoodlums, that's the term being used, are not arrested, then this will happen again. So regarding that, the different explanations, people saying maybe this was an inside job because of the coordination. It seemed coordinated. I mean, how did they know where to go to and what to do? So in terms of that, are you pursuing that? Because this happened weeks ago.
Yes.
What have you found out?
We have, when the Nigerian Navy came to provide us with support to clear out the vandals, they were able to arrest 7 of them. So there's 7 of the hoodlums that are in detention. They're in detention in the Nigerian Navy. They've been handed over to the Nigerian police. We're initiating process of prosecuting them because they were found in the premise. We also have CCTV footage of what happened, how the attack happened. And it's quite interesting because they also were destroying our CCTV cameras in the process because they didn't want to be captured. But we've been able to significantly have video footage that we have sent to Lagos State government to initiate process on our behalf, and also sent to federal government for us to identify those people and also prosecute them.
Any idea of an inside job?
Well, to the extent that we have not been able to detect instance of an inside job, as it were. All the CCTV footage did not show anybody that we could identify. There are also areas where people, you can see, there's some women actually that were looting, looting refrigerators, standing air conditioners, water dispensers, chairs, and computers. So we haven't been able to determine or see any evidence of insider knowledge. The cars were in the car park. If you're familiar with the marina area, our perimeter fence is quite low. It's something that you can actually see inside of our premise. The mobile policemen that were on duty were overwhelmed, chased away, and the hoodlums took over the premise. They were in the location for about 2 hours.
2 hours?
2 hours, yes, before we're able to get the support from Nigerian Navy to arrest the incident.
Most certainly, I don't even know how I would cope if I had to be in there, but let's take a break, for some messages. And when we return, we'll continue this conversation and look at some other activities that will be of interest to everyone. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Managing Director, Nigerian Ports Authority, Hadiza Usman, is still with us this morning. Well, straight to business, so to speak. We know how critical, this whole, the border port operations is to our economy. Would you say that the ports is back full stream now, or you're still kind of getting into the flow?
Back full stream within COVID period?
No. COVID, because it's a quagmire, so to speak.
Yeah. So within COVID, port operations globally sustained activity. So there was, we continued, vessels were calling into the ports. The challenge that we had within the critical part of the lockdown was the whole value chain, because port operations were open on the one hand, and then, for example, banking services were not open. We had to intervene to get banking services open. And also truck drivers, trucks. So it's difficult for us to have port operations open and then the warehouses that the goods would go to are not open. So that was a big issue within that period, at which point the Nigerian Ports Authority now granted a rent-free period. So if you have your cargo coming in within the period of the lockdown and it's in the ports, so you would not be charged for rent for keeping it there because you couldn't take it out and it wasn't your fault that you couldn't take it out.
Okay.
So we have sustained that. There's also the challenge around crew change because of the COVID. So vessels that come in with their crew that have been on vessel for a long time had a constraint with exiting their crew and then bringing another set. But the Presidential Task Force was able to grant us the necessary support and approvals for ships calling in Nigeria to have them change their crew without exposing anyone to any infection arising from their stay on the vessel or off the vessels.
But one critical challenge a number of people who do business with you will talk about is the transportation.
Yes.
access to the ports and all of that. And that seems to be perennial, not just at the ports, but also in the neighborhoods, the surrounding environments,
yes.
and stuff.
Yeah, so inflow and outflow is a challenge within the ports. One of the important things is the need for deployment of intermodal transportation. And I keep speaking to that if you look at the volumes of cargo, 1.3 million TEUs of containers come into the ports, and all those containers are evacuated by road. So the road would be congested and the road will eventually get bad because of the weight of the tonnage. And we need to conclude on our rail connections to the port. There's, of course, a huge drive within the Ministry of Transportation for rail deployment. Now Tinkan Island and Apapa are getting the necessary connection. They had indeed historical Apapa a marginal rail connection, which is ineffective. They don't have wagons. So we look at intermodal transportation as the solution to cargo evacuation. So you use rail, you use inland waters, and you use road. So that mix would now allow portions of cargo to be split across those transportation nodes. That way you would not have one area being congested. So speaking to the areas around Nigerian ports, to the minds of every Nigerian, if my cargo comes into the ports and it's in there for 3 months, they call me, oh, Hadiza, my cargo is in. And they don't realize that the role of Nigerian ports is when the vessel calls into the Nigerian waterways, it gets to the fairway buoy, which is the main entrance into the port locations. Nigerian Ports Authority pilots go on board to pilot the vessels. Our job is to ensure the draft is accommodating the vessels. We do maintenance dredging. We ensure that the pilots board the vessels. They bring the vessel to the terminal. As you're aware, we've concessioned our terminals. Vessel berths, cargo is offloaded onto the terminal. So once your cargo is offloaded onto the terminal, the next thing is for inspection, for the agencies that are responsible for inspection now take over to inspect your cargo, which is Nigerian Customs Service and other agencies. So at that point, literally, Nigerian Ports Authority has no oversight over that. So that portion from then, once the cargo is on the terminal, the next aspects are inspection, how to get the cargo out of the, what is the period for inspection. If you're aware, we have 100% physical examination. So if in your mind you look at 1.3 million TEUs are being inspected physically, meaning staff of Nigerian Customs would come, open the container, check it. So how fast can we do that to enable you get your cargo?
Because there should be a way to do that more
There's
effectively.
Scanners. Scanners are used globally for that. So if you have scanners, the containers will just drive through the scanner, and then that's it. Any information that is needed by customs and every other agency, you'll be able to see that, and that's it.
So why don't we have this?
Well, Nigerian Customs is responsible for providing the scanners. They're in the process of procuring it, but that is a critical aspect of delay that we have. And then when you go to the exit in the ports, road connecting into the ports and that is also not under Nigerian ports. For example, the roads approaching the ports are Ministry of Works. Truck pack locations are Lagos State government. So our key performance indicators are tied to other people's performance. So my KPIs can only be achieved if Customs deploys a scanner.
I see.
Ministry of Works corrects the road.
I see what you're doing there, trying to apportion the responsibilities.
Yeah, no, it's not apportion. It's for people to understand and for all of us to ensure that we're all held accountable. At the end of the day, we're all government. So government needs to provide the necessary infrastructure for citizens. So on the backside, we have to push Customs to have scanners. We have to push Ministry of Works because as a citizen, I don't want to know you're all government.
So that raises the issue of synergy between those agencies. But we can't take away the fact that people still go through, they will say hell, just to go through the process. They talk about, you talk about congestion. But for the average business person, they have gone through a lot just to get those goods to the brink of Nigeria. But then getting it from that point just to the roads, which is, just how many?
Just to their warehouse.
Just to their, in fact, to the roads, which is just a few kilometers, is huge. Some of them have to pay 700,000, a million naira. So to the issue of congestion, which is big, I have people who have told me, well, I still have good stock there. I remember you were talking about, overtime cargoes, how to do away with them, talking about auction. But is there a solution, really? Because that is the major challenge of importing.
So when you look at solution one is we have intermodal transportation, splitting it across rail. Two, within the Lagos area, we need to have e-collab systems and truck parks that are designated for inflow into the port. So what I mean is when you have trucks on the road, our idea is you have e-collab. The only reason why the truck would be on the road if it has been called up to go and pick up a cargo. So you don't have trucks milling around the port locations. Right now, truck drivers drive to the port locations and they're there for days. And in a lot of instances, they're there marketing the fact that, oh, my truck is a day to the port, so come and give me cargo. So we must have an e-column where the truck parks are linked to the port location. So the truck can only start going to the port if it's called upon. So that sort of e-column deployment is what we need to do. We've concluded that in January, we're going to unveil the e-column system. We're in partnership with, we're using one of our terminals as the entry point. Lily Pond would be where the trucks would have the final clearance into the port, while Lagos State government is providing larger trailer parks within the within Lagos for it to be the hub where trucks will sit and wait for clearance to go into the port. So that would create a level of sanity where the whole area is not congested and people are milling around. Within the Papa area, I'm sure you're aware, we also have the tank farms. There's an incident where the Owando tank farm caught fire. So there is that area of petroleum products also going into Apapa. So we have layers of, one, the port entrance, two, the entrance for petroleum products within that area.
So the soonest we can have some restitution is January.
January is when we will unveil the e-column.
So when will it be?
It would start. So when will the truck park that Lagos State government would provide to enable the larger mop-up? So if you understand, there's a large trailer park where like 1,000. Yes, they're using Orile trailer park, which they say would be ready in 3 months. Orile is the Ahmed Bola Tinubu trailer park, would be the hub where the larger trucks would come. You drive from there when you're called upon, you come to Lily Pond or Tinkan Island trailer park, then you gain access into the ports and outside. So quickly speak to the issue of overtime cargo and the need to auction. That's an integral part of the concern we have. Cargo come into the ports and they're not cleared, and they remain uncongested because...
But they're not cleared, not because, I mean, imagine I spend so much to get the goods into Nigeria. Yeah. I mean, my desire is to get it close to my warehouse as quick as possible.
Abandon the cargo.
Because they say that there's so much bottlenecks. In fact, some people say it costs ×8 the amount of importing just to get it out.
So if you have it as ×8 and you decide to abandon it, meaning you don't want it anymore, it should not remain in the ports. So when you abandon it for whatever reason you have, the cargo is to be moved out of the port to a government warehouse where Nigerian customs would auction it. So the challenge we have now is that the government warehouse in itself is full. So Nigerian Customs Service needs to now auction those cargo to enable more of the overtime cargo being moved out. So if you have cargo...
Yeah, my apologies. Is there anything that can be done to encourage the businesses? Because if the amount spent to import is way less than the amount they will need to clear the goods, that's definitely
well, the amount needed to clear the goods are fixed. Customs has their charges.
That's officially.
No. What the concern is to do with moving the cargo. So if they say, I brought this and it's taking me X thousand to navigate going into the ports. So that is usually the issue, that the cost of renting a truck into the port and out is so high because the trucks are in traffic for days and they charge higher.
Just a moment, Madam. You know, there's this ease of doing business index, and the conversations over the years has been on about that.
Yes.
And then, so I guess you know about that, the PEBEC, committee that the president set up under the vice president's office to do something to ensure that we reduce the number of stops that people have to get through.
So there's an executive order, Presidential Council of Ease of Doing Business, where...
Is there any way that is affected?
Well, it's more to do with compliance, and I keep saying it when we have meetings with the vice president, because he's the chair of the PEBEC, Presidential Council on Ease of Doing Business, is the need to sanction non-compliant agencies. So to the extent that there's a directive, an executive order, which speaks to the need for having one single interface for inspection. So what it says is, all agencies of government, you do one inspection. And once you've cleared that cargo, nobody should stop the cargo again. But in this instance, we have continuous incidences where cargo is inspected in that one stop. Once it gets to the gate, it's inspected again. When it gets to the road again, it's inspected again. So that in itself
Who are the...
So there are several agencies that are non-compliant. So my position to the Vice President and to Ease of Doing Business, you must sanction for non-compliance. If a directive is given, an executive order, and an agency just does not do that.
Which agencies are these?
There are quite a number of agencies that do that. For example, you have Nigerian Customs Service retains having an inspection at the gate. They retain having a highway patrol. Nigerian Customs references that as the fact that it's part of their act. This is their justification because we've had those extensive back and forth on the need to reduce it. They said that the act allows them and enables them to do inspection wherever they deem fit. They also reference the fact that there are certain instances of arrests that they've made of illegal goods that were done within those inspections that they do outside of the one-stop shop. So there are all these, I'll say, submissions that are being made. But indeed, we must ensure sanctioning for compliance and non-compliance, or then you change the executive order.
Speaking of sanctioning,
yes.
I mean, I still go back to the overtime cargoes because, for example, the president of Shippers Association of Lagos says that, you know what, clearing those goods, that shippers must get extra funds for distribution to corrupt platforms in the ports, which is one of the reasons those goods are abandoned in the first place. So, which lends credence to what I was saying. It is not the interest of the business person to leave those goods there. So what are you doing to ensure sanctioning?
So if we speak to corrupt platforms, I'm keen to know what corrupt platforms in the ports. What I'm aware of is we have an issue where transversing into the ports is where people are giving police and officials on the road to get into the ports. That is what I'm aware of. Any other incidents of corruption inside the port as it relates to the clearance of the cargo, I'm not aware of that. But I'll encourage for the head of the Shippers Association to bring that to our attention. So that area where getting into the ports, you need to keep paying officials like police, last month, all of that thing around transversing the port corridor is what we seek to address by having an e-collop system. So that is what we seek to do. So any other such corruption within the value chain would be keen to see where it is so that we can address it. And as I mentioned to you, Nigerian Ports does not supervise clearance of cargo. Nigerian Ports does not supervise inspection of cargo. So that is completely outside of our own jurisdiction. Areas that we are concerned is to ensure that the terminals remain available for more cargo to come in. So if we have too much overtime cargo in the terminal, it means that offloading will be difficult because they have nowhere to keep it. So we're keen to move any overtime cargo out of the terminal to the government warehouse. And that government warehouse needs to be freed. So it's like you bring it in, you auction, then you bring in more overtime cargo. So we are keen to ensure that there's space within our port to enable us have more cargo coming. Just to speak to also the areas where we need to improve on our own operational efficiencies is the need to have our terminal operators have the necessary equipment, the necessary development plan. We had a concern about a year ago with APMT terminal, the largest container terminal. They didn't have the necessary equipment there to offload cargo, and we sanctioned them that they have not been investing, and they must provide the cranes that are needed to have fast movement of the... So we sanctioned them and they were able to deploy. So just to speak to the respective areas and what we all need to do to improve. So on our side, you know, these are some of the things we're doing within our jurisdiction.
Just to quickly speak to the auctioning,
yes,
before we move on to other things.
Yes.
So you said that, I mean, you've been mulling that idea. Has it begun? What's the modality
Well,
like?
auctioning is also Nigerian Customs. We don't auction. All we do is the cargo is over time, it's spent X number of days, so we now move the cargo. 200 containers moved to government warehouse. And at that point, customs now would auction them.
That involves illegal imports also, right?
Well, illegal, you know, we don't have much illegal imports coming in through the ports. So, well, we very marginal, but that includes anything that has not been cleared. So when we move those items to the government warehouse, customs now decides on how the modality for auctioning is really within their jurisdiction. All we want is auction them fast so we have more space in the government warehouse to keep moving overtime cargo so the terminal is not congested and we can't offload more cargo onto the platform.
What qualifies as overtime?
Overtime is when cargo stays in a terminal for over 30 days.
30 days.
Yeah,
now, the word out there is, so those illegal imports,
yes,
where you say they don't come as much through the ports,
yeah.
They go through other ports of other countries and then come through the land borders.
Yes.
Now, the borders have been closed for a while, but you know that there are also illegal entries. So, I mean, looking at the land borders also, which might actually make your job easier, really, in terms of importing.
So let me speak to this issue of land border closure.
So
with the land border closed, you should see a commensurate increase in volumes of cargo to the country through the seaports, but we didn't see that. So when the land borders were closed, you would expect that the Nigerian ports will have higher volumes coming in to the same volumes that were coming into land borders. We saw marginal increase. The increase was not significant, which now speaks to the fact that the volumes of cargo that are coming in from the land borders, a huge portion of them are goods that are banned in Nigeria or goods that have high import tariff. So those volumes, for example, the cars that are imported, you don't see those cars. There's an increase, but not to the tune of what is usually comes into the land borders.
So looking at when the border was closed now, or before when it was not closed, when was the NPA making perhaps more? And do you think it's effective really closing those borders?
Well, for us, we've seen, as I said, the increase in volumes are marginal. There is an increase in volumes, in volumes of, for example, automobiles and certain items, but it's marginal compared to what goes through the land border. So to a certain extent, for me, is more to do with the small and medium enterprises that are challenged within the land borders. These are goods that come in from the neighboring countries, for SMEs that have no business coming from they're not from the high seas, they're not from the waters. So those are the traffic that would be challenged within the land border closure that really have no import or impact within the ports, because typically there are people selling things from Nigeria to Ghana, so they have no business using our port locations.
Does the NPA have challenges? I mean, the records, the Auditor General's report, for instance, talks about some challenges with remittances between 2014 and 2015 specifically, and no issues arose, at least from the records that are in public space now, on 2016, 2017 reports so far. What are those issues, for instance? This is what we have for 2015, 67.5 billion naira non-remittance of internally generated revenue, unspent funds into the consolidated revenue. This has happened before.
Yes.
Does this still continue?
No, we have insisted that all computations around remittance to CRF are prioritized. I started in 2016, July, and from then henceforth, we've ensured that we make payments as at when due, so that we don't have any carryovers. And indeed, some of the non-payments arising from those years, we've had to make payments to them. And one of the concerns is the issue of audited statements. If you're familiar with the process, is that you need to audit your statements. With that, you will be able to determine the actual amount. But even before your statements are audited, you need to now make those payments. That way, after the audit, you'll know if there's a balance or not. When I joined, we had inherited unaudited statements for 13, 14, 15 unaudited financial statements. We had to work hard to meet up and audit that backlog to enable us now meet up. And thank God now we've been able to meet up. Our audited statements are up to date, and we're making the necessary remittance. And beyond even making the necessary remittance asset window is also the amount of remittance. We've increased our remittance within the period in full compliance with the Fiscal Responsibility Act.
You have continued to talk about over and over again concerning, because we're really running out of time, you've continued to talk about the fact that the ports are congested because of certain reasons. What are the plans to expand? To decentralize the activities?
Yes, so expanding so when you look at the eastern ports, we have given waivers on harbour dues to encourage vessels to call in the eastern ports. We've also expanded on our container access in Onne ports. There's a container terminal there. During the year, when there was a lockdown, we had the largest container vessel that had come into the country go to Onne, just so that we can test and make the shipping companies know Onne is a destination. Larger vessels call in Onne. There's also a terminal and a huge market around that area. So we're making all efforts to ensure that there is attraction to taking your cargo to other locations in the country beyond Lagos. There's also the need for us to have deeper drafts of larger vessels.
We'll talk more about that one and a number of other ports that have been, haven't been in operation for a good number of years. Yes. About that, so that we can wrap it all up in a moment. Do stay with us. Clearly, we'll not be able to finish this conversation, but just so we'll put that out there. But Hadiza Usman, Managing Director, Nigerian Ports Authority, is still with us here now. So we're talking about, those, ports that haven't been used in a while. Have you been able to identify those and then the challenges with them and the plans to revamp them?
Yes, as I was mentioning, we need to have deep sea ports, meaning ports that have 60-meter plus draft. That's where the world is going for. Economies of scale, vessels are built larger. So, for example, right now we have vessels that call into neighboring countries, large vessels, and then they put on smaller vessels to bring to us because our deepest draft is 13 meters and vessels now need 16-meter draft. So we're keen to push Lekki Deep Sea Port so that we can have a large deep sea port within the area. There's the Ibom Deep Sea Port that is also coming on stream. There's the Bonny Deep Sea Port. So having those deep sea ports are what we actually need now because 30-meter, 10-meter draft ports are really not what is going on globally. As I mentioned, we're encouraging vessels to call into the eastern ports. There's also the understanding to recognize, for example, Calabar Port. Calabar Port is 10-meter draft and is currently at 6 meters. We had planned to dredge it to 10 meters. The cost of the dredging was about 50 billion, and we couldn't justify that. And you're dredging 50 billion to 10 meters when the world is going to 16 meters.
So that doesn't quite...
It doesn't really add up.
When is the earliest time we can have deep sea port in operation?
Lekki Deep Sea Port 2022, third quarter 2022. That's what we got out of Lekki Deep Sea Port last week. The other deep sea ports, we don't have a specific timeline for commencing commercial operations, but with that, they're firm on concluded. Right.
Let me quickly take you up on this. It's been on, this question about 2007 technical trainees, yes. And a couple of them that are concerned about entitlement and reinstatement. Are you looking into that?
We have looked at it. We have the issues around the industrial court. We have made our submissions to the National Assembly for them to recognize that Nigerian ports today would not be able to absorb those manners of staff, and we've encouraged them to apply as it were. But we're clear on our position on that. We inherited that position and we have maintained that.
So for now, you're maintaining status quo. Okay, you talked about auditing earlier on. Recently, if you'll be following the proceedings at the Senate, I recall the Senate committee specifically asking the Auditor General to look into your books.
Yes.
And you said that there's been some form of auditing.
Yes.
So by who? And if the Auditor General, let's say when he looks into your books, what will he find?
Well, I encourage audit function. I encourage people to look into our books to highlight any, if there are any non-compliance with the audit process, we would look to comply. So the audit process, as referenced, is external audit of our books, and following that, the Auditor General also does an audit. So these are the layers of different types of audits that are done, and we welcome the Auditor General. It's actually his duty to look into our books, so we look forward to receiving that audit.
Very, very quick one. There's this thing you mentioned about collaboration of all agencies of government. And are you looking at ways of ensuring that such representation of those other agencies happen at the ports, like on the ports and the rest of them? How far so far?
Yes, there is. Within they have the meetings in the ports and collaborating and doing what is required within their own position as foot soldiers. But on the other level, we need to synergize the timelines of our reform initiatives. So if you have, for example, the need for scanners, so customs is understanding the urgency for the scanners, so they know we must procure urgently. Understanding the need to deploy the single windows, deploying that. So that understanding of the whole ease of doing business value chain is key, so that we can all ensure that we're at the same pace. So if my key performance indicators cannot be achieved because the rail project is slow, so I have to make sure that the rail project is faster. Okay. And if we are unable to use the inland waterways, I have to make sure that LASWA, Lagos State Inland Waterways, NIWA is doing what they need to do on inland waterways and barge evacuation of cargo.
Let's just hope we never get you to the point where you have to protest.
That's a good point, actually.
Well, we have to thank you very much. Hadiza Usman, Managing Director, Nigerian Ports Authority. Thank you so much for your time and well done.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Well, that's Sunrise Daily today. Hope you have had fun listening, and information is out there for your use. My name is Ayo Makide. Have a wonderful day and enjoy your weekend.
And I'm Kaido Kikelu. Thank you for joining us.